Family, let me say this. Getting promoted feels exciting, at least initially. And then, like, Monday comes and you realize everything you have to deal with. And one of those things could be one of your friends now reports to you. You had not contemplated this. No one told you it was coming. And guess what? Someone who used to outrank you could now be sitting in your staff meeting reporting to you as well. Or you inherit this team that they didn't choose you. And quite frankly, they don't want you there. No one teaches you how awkward leadership transitions are, and they are awkward. No one says it out loud. And they think you will handle them perfectly. But guess what? If you handle them poorly, it can really erode trust quickly. I've lived through this. I've been at Chase, which became JP Morgan Chase. So I've went through the whole merger thing. I've led teams where I've had peers become direct reports, and man, it could be awkward. I've had people when I started at one company was a level or two before me, then became a peer when I got promoted, and then became a direct report when I got promoted again. And I can tell you, family, it doesn't feel good. I've walked into merger situations where resentment was already in the room. I didn't have to say anything. My name evoked emotions that were not healthy. And I've handled some of these situations well, but I've also handled some of them poorly. Listen, by the end of this episode, you're going to have a framework for navigating 3 of the most uncomfortable and awkward relationship shifts that come with leadership. You may not do it perfectly, but you'll do it with some intention because you will have these tips. You're going to walk away and learn how to handle 3 situations. Your friend becoming your direct report, someone senior now reporting to you, and walking into a contentious situation like a merger or acquisition. So let's start with this friend who now becomes your direct report. You know, it's really awkward because this is someone you used to vent with. You used to maybe go to lunch with, go to dinner with, hang out, lick each other's wounds. And then the next day, you're approving their vacation requests. Let's think about that. You're writing their performance review. You're setting their goals. You have to be the one to say, man, that's a layup goal. We're going to take it here. That changes everything, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. See, a lot of times we don't want to acknowledge it. And I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman who we worked together. In fact, I watched him get promoted, become a peer, same level, working together. We kind of had what I would call roles that were complementary to each other. Him managing one side of the organization, me managing the other. So that means we had the same frustration. We had the same boss. We had the same peers. We'd have the same conversations after meetings. We'd lick each other's wounds, console each other. Well, guess what? I got promoted. And honestly, it did not feel good. And one of the mistakes I made that you can make very quickly is go to someone and say, hey, we're just working together in a different way now. Nothing really changes. We're still at it together. Wrong. You can't go on acting as if nothing changed. Guess what? Because if he wants to complain about the boss is now you. If he wants to lick his wounds after a meeting and he feels the boss didn't run well, he needs to talk about you. If he's got issues with how things are going on, contextually, so on and so forth, it ends up in your seat. Things have changed. So 2 things. One, walking in and saying, hey, nothing's changed. We'll still do this. We'll still be rolling together is a mistake. But also silence is a mistake. What you need in this time, family, is clarity. You have to be abundantly clear what you're going to do together. So again, don't say nothing's going to change. For sure it's going to change. Everyone knows that's not true. You know it's not true, but we have a tendency to want to do that. We want to respond in a way that makes people feel loved and taken care of. Here's what I advise you to do instead of that. 1, schedule a one-on-one with the person immediately. After you've taken the promotion, one of the first things you should do after you celebrate and have your cake, call your significant others, celebrate with your friends, so on and so forth, is set up one-on-ones with all of the people impacted. And this person should be one of the first people you sit down with. You want to make sure they know it was important to you to have a conversation sooner rather than later. Acknowledge the awkwardness directly. Don't elude it. Don't step around it. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't check it off. Just say, hey, listen, this probably feels awkward to you because it certainly feels awkward to me. Talk openly now about what you expect from each other. You have to be clear that we were friends. We were jovial. We joked around. We talked about different things, whether some were appropriate, not appropriate, doesn't matter. It is now different. And we just need to be clear about expectations of each other. Explain clearly what they can expect from you. How do you lead? What is your leadership style? How do you want to engage with them as you would your other direct reports? And I want to underscore that, as you would your other direct reports. And again, affirm the relationship without compromising the role. That is really important. If you want a script, so to speak, to use, here's a line you can say: I value our friendship, but also have to lead well now. I'm committed to doing both. Let me say that again. I value our relationship, but also have to lead well now in this new position. I am committed to doing both. Your consistency matters more than the speech. They will watch what you do after the conversation. They will see if you treat them differently. The people who are not them are going to see if you give them preferential treatment. This person on the other side is going to say, are you giving them treatment that looks like you're pushing them further away? You need to be balanced. So that's what you do with that one. The person who used to be a friend and now reports to you. Let's now talk about the person who used to outrank you. Now imagine that again. This one can really wreak havoc on your confidence because you can start asking yourself, wow, should I have had 2 promotions that quickly and now that person reports to me? How do they feel about that? Maybe they wanted this job that I just got. It can really start to make you ask all of these questions. And you can even start to look for them to want to approve your work accidentally. Many new leaders, family, panic in this situation. And if that's been you, it's okay. Let it out. Maybe you did. But now you can do something different. You know, I had this situation before as well. I had someone when I started an organization named Max. Max was 2 levels above me, meaning he was a peer to my, I'm sorry, he was 1 level above me. He was a peer of my manager at the time. I held him in high esteem. He did some great work. He had great history inside the organization, managed a large team, I think 100 people or so. When I would go out to that part of the country and spend time with them, I really enjoyed being in that space. He created a great culture and atmosphere. But then I got promoted. And so now I'm Max's peer. We're in the same staff meetings together. Great. Our relationship now got close. We bonded. When we would go on different trips as a leadership team, he and I would hang out, have all the conversations you expect to have, got to know each other. I even remember like doing budget season. We would get on the phone with each other, trade notes. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what you're doing. Oh, wow, great. Thanks for the tip. Exchanging all those different things, so on and so forth. And then I got promoted and I became Max's manager. And it was incredibly awkward and challenging to me. Right? And I had to really make a decision. Do I spend my time proving to Max why I got the role? Do I spend my time over explaining while I got the role? Do I spend my time probing and tiptoeing around Max's feelings and emotions and his confidence, right? To make sure I don't intrude on his space? Or do I pull him close and try to leverage his wisdom? And I did the latter in that case. And that's the thing I think you need to understand. Don't try to prove yourself. Don't try to ensure people understand why you belong. Don't try to tiptoe around their feelings and the awkwardness associated with it. Similar to the first example, have a private one-on-one with that person sooner rather than later. Explain what you expect from each other. Talk about the awkwardness that is right there on the table. Let them know they're valued. And that is so important. Let them know that they're valued because you have to understand, and you think about it, they are replaying all these things in their head as well. You got promoted twice and they're sitting in the same place and now they report to you. There are all kind of things running through their head, but they're still there. And you can emphasize that you're still here. You're still valued. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your institutional history all matters. So for you to take away is to think about that. Secure leadership collaborates. You want to be highly collaborative in this moment. Again, you're going to schedule that one-on-one. You're going to spend time with them. And if you need a line to say, you could say this to them. What do I need to understand that no one else is going to tell me that only you know? You lean into pulling from their wisdom early. You signal verbally. You care about getting their wisdom on the table and leveraging it. And then one of the things you want to do as well, to the extent you can, and you don't want to be over the top, and you don't want to make this feel insincere, is publicly acknowledge their expertise. in staff meetings, in all hands meetings. You want to make sure you publicly acknowledge what they're doing, why it matters, and all of those things. One of the things you can't afford to do, and I could not afford to do with Max, is let this person feel ostracized and or have the team feel like they've been ostracized. You also want to be very honest about what you don't know with this person. They've been in this seat for quite some time. They be maybe managing a large part of the organization you assume responsibilities for. You be honest, like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to need you to show me some things. I'm going to need me to walk you through your goals. How did you arrive at setting those goals, establishing those plans, and all of those things? How do you manage people? Tell me about the culture you've created, how you've created it. Tell me about what's important for you this year and why. Tell me what you're thinking about already for next year. I know the plans aren't due yet, but I'd love to hear what you're thinking. One of the things you want to do is make sure you understand and think about that respecting the person doesn't mean surrendering your leadership. You never surrender your leadership. You have to lead the team. And so one of the thoughts to keep in your mind, your goal is not role reversal. The goal is mutual respect. And so that's how you handle, again, the person who used to be a level or more above you who is now a direct report. The third situation to deal with is indeed one of the toughest, in my personal opinion. I call it the reluctant direct report. This is when you're in a merger or an acquisition or reorganization. And listen, this person had no idea they were going to end up reporting to you. And by certainly, in their mind, they do not want to report to you. Their team doesn't want to report to you. Sometimes it feels like a hostile takeover. And this requires heavy, intentional leadership early. It is going to feel draining at times. I'll give you an example. I walked into a situation after merger, and there were several teams that came to me as a part of that merger and reorganization that happened right after that merger. And one of the teams felt kind of okay. We were getting along. We were working together. We were early in explaining our differences, but quickly like gelling and how we were coming together. But one person who had another team, it couldn't have been more different. We have very different leadership styles. His team was civil. They were nice to me when I showed up, but I could tell when I would go over to that building, I wasn't necessarily welcomed, okay? There weren't petals on the ground for me to walk over. And that's okay. I learned a lot in that situation because sometimes people feel like they've lost influence. Sometimes they feel like they've lost autonomy. Sometimes they feel like they're swimming in a stream they've never swam in before and never wanted to, and now they don't have a choice. And in those situations, family, again, you have to get in quickly with your intentions. If you ignore that tension, it does nothing but fester. It gets worse. In fact, in that situation, I remember the person coming to me after a while saying, I am not sure I can subscribe to your leadership. And we talked openly about it. One of the things I loved is that because I got in early and said, this is how I'm leading, this is how I'm doing things, this is how I think things will play out. Here are my expectations of you. Here's what you should expect from me. One of the things was transparent conversations. There's nothing we cannot talk about. And so he came to me and said, I'm not sure I can subscribe to your leadership. Let's work through things. And then probably 2-3 months later, we were sitting in a one-on-one and he said to me, listen, you know what? I think it's my time to go. I can't get along with this new culture, if I'm being honest. This is what I'm used to. You're a very different leader in this way. And the organization is also making a shift that doesn't feel good to me. And I think it's time for me to roll. That was great. It was great because it was honest. And so what I would say to you, family, is listen, you have to walk through this with a level of confidence and intention. And again, get in early and do those things. So again, your actions, don't wait. Get in early. Initiate the conversation. Acknowledge the tension and the awkwardness and all those things early. If you want a script, and I'm giving you scripts in this episode because I've had to do it so many times that the scripts are kind of top of mind for me. Listen, you can say, I know this transition has been and will be difficult. I'd rather talk about it directly than pretend it's not there. I know it's only 2 sentences, but it opens up such a wonderful conversation. Let me say it again. I know this transition has been difficult. I'd rather talk about it directly than pretend it's not there. Ask what they need. Just like that. What do you need during this time? And just listen. Just think about that. When's the last time someone asked you that? What do you need in this moment and during this time? And just let them talk. Let them linger. Let them get it out. In fact, I would even advise that during this season for them, you do that often. Each one-on-one, if you want to, come and put your pad and pen down on the table and say, what do you need during this time? What are some things that are going well for you right now? What are some things that are not going well? How is your team feeling in this moment? How are they managing through all of these changes? And then you should document the conversations. If you feel like it's becoming a challenge, and even if you don't, quite honestly, involve your HR manager, business leader, whatever you have in your organization to also get good counsel, replay to them the conversations you're having, and make sure you keep them abreast of what's going on. Again, this is not punishment. Sometimes we think about HR involving human resources, we think it's for punishment's sake. It's not. They should be a resource. They should be counsel. They should be giving you good advice on a regular basis. You can't control someone's emotions, but you're responsible for leading them through the difficult moments with integrity, family. I'll just say this, in all three of the points we talked about, the person who used to be a peer, the person who used to outrank you, and the person you may have picked up in a contentious situation like an acquisition or a merger or a company reorganization, leadership will challenge relationships. And you have to be intentional and you have to be proactive to get in front of it. That's the part no one tells you about. What will come to you is the planning, the spreadsheets, the performance review cycle, writing up goals and all those things. It will come to as a natural part of the process. But what people will not tell you about is the difficulty in managing relationships. And if you're not intentional, you can damage trust trying to avoid the discomfort. And that's the point. I'm not going to say it's going to feel good. But here's the things I will tell you. People can handle and appreciate honesty. People can handle and they appreciate clarity. What destroys relationships is ambiguity, avoidance, and insecurity. I'll say it again. What destroys relationships is ambiguity, avoidance, and insecurity. So if you're stepping into one of those situations right now, here's the thing. Don't avoid the conversation. Don't fake confidence, family. And please don't pretend nothing has changed. Lead directly, lead clearly, and lead as a human, because that's how you become the leader you wish you always had. Until next time, be encouraged. Lead well.